Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Ranking the Albums. Today, in the dual co-captains chairs, we've got Sydney Taylor and Rich Catino. Good morning. Is it still morning? Yes, it's still morning. 11 a.m. here. We're doing this taping. So sorry for the day delay here, but we are back one day past when we originally said we were going to do this. We're all off today for President's Day here in the U.S., so what better morning to sit and talk about our favorite Yngwie Malmsteen albums. So how are you both this morning?
Morning.
It's going good. It's the morning, so
Right.
feeling fresh. It's the beginning of the day, so
Yeah, bright and early. I generally don't see Sydney till the evenings. I see Rich all different times. Rich, it's usually either in the evening or early morning for us, but so this is somewhere in between. So today, Yngwie Malmsteen, Swedish guitar sensation since the early 80s, has like a million albums. So we figured, there we go. Rich has got his lovely 80s jacket there with all the great patches. There's the Rising Force album cover. I see Halloween. Let's see what I can see from this far away. I see Wasp. I see Halloween. Is that, oh boy.
Creator. Twisted Sister, Wolf, one of the newer bands.
Okay.
Stradivarius, I'm wearing. Striker, one of the newer bands. Gamma Ray, Dark Angel, Rainbow, Metal Church, Queensryche, Blind Guardian, Sodom.
I thought that was
Praying Mantis.
Yep.
Praying Mantis. Don't really see Praying Mantis patches, right? Hammerfall, Gravedigger, Jimmy Borgir.
You're out of room now. What are you going to do if you get another one?
White Lion, right? Primal Fear, The King, Nightwish. I got more on the front too, so.
yeah. I was gonna say was thinking there'd be more on the front as well.
Yeah, maybe I'll flip it halfway through the show.
No, mine never made it out of like the early 90s. That like disintegrated from like overuse. I wish I still had it.
Yeah, I switched this one out and I updated with, as the decades went on.
Yeah. I see you guys like you and Chris Allo and Ryan Scow with these wonderful jackets, and I'm like, I wish I still had mine. Oh well.
Well, you can start it, but there you go down the rabbit hole then.
I know, right? At 55, do I really want to start doing that now? I go down enough rabbit holes, man. It's crazy. Anyway, back to Yngwie. So he's got a lot of albums, way too many albums to do all in one sitting. So I said to both Sydney and Rich, it's like, how about we just pick our 10 favorites? All right, and leave it at that, because that's probably will be the cream of the crop here. So that's what we're going to do. And ladies first, so I'm going to have Sydney kick us off with her number 10.
Okay, so my number 10. Now I have to precursor this with, I tried my best to rank everything after like 5. It was really hard for me. I don't know. I think we talked about this before. We might have a lot of the same albums because I'm primarily picking a lot from 80s and 90s primarily. So the first record I'm going to go with is Facing the Animal, which is 1997. And I have to throw a little shout out to my pal Butch, because this was Cozy Powell's one of his last performances he played on this record. And it's not one of my favorites. Obviously, it's number 10, but this was almost very kind of alternative sounding, I feel like, for Yngwie. And I don't know, it was just different, I feel like. And I know I'm gonna probably butcher his name. Mats Levin was on lead vocals. I'm not sure that's 100% how you say his last name. But he was on vocals, and I think he kind of had that 90s sound to his voice. There's some kind of standout tracks on here. I like the title track. I like an Angel. That's a great track on this record. And there's a couple really good ones. And it was just kind of different for Yngwie, I feel, at that time, and was kind of probably one of my last favorites as of recently, to be honest. So that's going to be my number 10.
Cool. Rich, what do you got for number 10?
Alchemy. Not Alchemy. Yeah, Alchemy.
Yeah, Alchemy. Yeah.
Yes. I got those 2 different covers for this. So this is from.
He's got like multiple covers for all those 90s and 2000s now. That's ridiculous.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is from 99. Last of that decade. So who's singing on this one? Mark Bowles is back on this one.
Yep.
Cool cover. I like this cover. The reissue's got a different cover. And couple of the players carried over from the previous albums, Seventh Sign and Magnum Opus. Let's see. I think who was it? Let's see.
Got
Barry
Barry
Dunaway, maybe.
John Macaluso,
Matt's
Matt's
Olson, I
Olson,
think, the keyboard player,
Olson.
right?
Yeah, he's played on a lot of his
Yeah.
albums.
Yeah. This got The Asylum, 3-part instrumental. It's pretty cool. It's a bit long, but he's been putting a lot of instrumentals since the late 90s on his albums, a lot, like 3, 4 per album. It's a bit much. But let's see. Playing with Fire is okay. Wield My Sword, the Blue, the instrumental is really nice. I like that. Demon Dance, Hangar 18. Yeah. This is pretty solid, I think. The production, this is where they start to kind of go downhill, I think, a little bit too. A little rough in some spots. But yeah, I go back to this once in a while. There's a few tracks I go back to, so that's why it's in my 10.
Cool.
I would say there's very few Yngwie albums that have great production, unfortunately.
Yeah, he
Depends.
has been
Yeah.
he has been adding a lot of, and that's another thing is, I mean, I see him in concert now. I've seen him twice, like in the last couple of years, and you get to the end of the show, and it's like you just see him do the instrumentals for like 2.5 hours, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
you can play. Yeah.
We've
But
known he
that's
can play
all
for 30 something years, right? It's like,
yeah, and I mean that's the thing is, I mean, I'm a big like lyrics and kind of vocal person. So I mean there are some kind of instrumental, more instrumental records that he did kind of earlier on that I have on my list, but like primarily I love the vocal stuff and the kind of the song based stuff that he did. So I completely agree, kind of switched to doing a lot more instrumentals than he ever did, which is a
Yeah.
little
Mark sounds good on this album too.
he does.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a nice guy too, Mark Bowles. All right, my number 10, I'm going to go all the way up to 2010 for Relentless. So this is the second album with Tim Ripper Owens on vocals. I love how like every album is just it's me, it's my album. I'm not going to show you anybody else. It's like, it's unbelievable. And this is a perfect example of what we've been talking about. It's like I think for me, Yngwie, he's had those couple of guys, singers I'm talking about, who he partnered with. They did the lyrics and all that kind of stuff, and it kind of I think changed his music for the better. But those never lasted, right? I think Ripper Owens was another guy he got in the band who I think was a great choice. He's got a great voice. He can write a bit. And, but, man, this is like the second album with him, and half of it's pretty kick-ass and heavy. And then, like, the rest of it's all instrumentals. And it's not that the instrumentals are bad because they're really good, but it's like, you got a guy like Tim Ripper Owens on your album, why have him sing only 5 or 6 songs out of 14? I don't get it. Right. But Critical Mass, really heavy. Enemy Within is great. Caged Animal. The instrumentals, like I said, are good. Shot Across the Bow, Relentless, Adagio, and B flat minor variations, Into Valhalla, all really good. The playing's really good. The vocals are good. And this would be it with this configuration. But I always thought, at this point in time, Ripper was just going from band to band to band. And I thought, when he hooked up with Yngwie, I was like, oh, that's a pretty good match. But like everything, it didn't last. And Yngwie just does not hold on to singers long. I mean, historically, one of the best he ever had, and we'll get to it, I'm sure, for all three of us, which I think could have been a perfect partnership to go multiple albums in years, kind of fizzled after one. And that was his biggest selling album of all time, right? So back to Sydney.
All right. My number 9, I was going to say number 8. My number 9 is The Seventh Sign, which was released in 1994. And this was a pretty good album, I think, for 1994. I mean, we mentioned this pretty much in, I feel like, every show, but we obviously know what was kind of happening at that time with the change in music. And, by 94, things were kind of completely different. So, I mean, I think that this was a pretty good record. He had Michael, the last names today, just going to kill me. Sarah, yes. Michael Becerra. I always also get I'm like, people are gonna come at me in the comments if I say it wrong, so I'm making sure I say it right. Michael Becerra on there, and he worked with Loudness and a couple of other cool bands. I think that he was vocally really great on this record. Again, I kind of go back to and like Pete just said, the vocalist I think added so much to Yngwie's work. I mean, those kind of partnerships that he did have, I feel like added a lot. And I think that this record was another kind of example of that. There's some good tracks on this. The opening track, Never Die, is a pretty good song. Brothers is a great song. I know Prisoner of Your Love is a little bit more a little bit more commercial, it sounds like, and sometimes it's a little bit of a criticized ballad. I know, kind of reading, and the reception wasn't too great when it came out. Some people kind of critically gave it some flack, but I mean, I think that that's a pretty great song. It's a pretty solid album. Again, number 9, so not too high on my list, but I think for the time period, it was a pretty good record. So that's going to be my number 9.
I remember when that came out, and I took one look at the cheap album cover and
Yeah,
packaging.
the album cover is no good.
I have it on the shelf. I didn't pull it, but man, what, like, I could have done a better job than that. It's like terrible.
We were talking about like the issues.
Yeah, I got
There's
that covered here.
so many different covers of this album reissued. There's like, and it's been released like 5 different times since it was released. And like,
This is better.
That's better than the
Yeah,
blue
that's
one with
better.
his, with, you know, his like photo, like it's like a
like
negative.
the triangle on his face.
Right.
Awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yeah. The 90s, the mid 90s was, I feel like, not a great time for some album covers, man. For some of these art, it was not. Like we did Mr. Big, and like some of those album covers were a little like, you know, like it wasn't a great time.
All right, Rich, back to you.
All right, going to 92 for Fire and Ice. This is second one, I want to say, right, with Goran Edmund.
Yes.
Am I correct? Wasn't he on Eclipse right before, right?
Yep. And that album cover kind of works, even though it's all him. Once again, I think it's just kind of pleasing.
Yeah, I like this one. This is cool.
Yeah.
Right. But you got what's on here? The single teaser, which is kind of like, I think, a second attempt at Heaven Tonight.
Yeah. It's a good song.
You know, not as good, but catchy.
Yeah.
I like How Many Miles to Babylon, Leviathan, Fire and Ice is cool. Perpetual is a really good instrumental to kick off the album. I like it when his albums kick off with a song or an instrumental that's got a lot of melody to it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes he just does too much shredding, but I think when he slows it down a little bit and he puts his melodies in there, it's a lot better. And I think Perpetual is one of those songs.
Yeah.
So but the production's not bad on this. It's not great either. It's okay. I think could probably benefit from a remix, right?
I think a lot of these could.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Alchemy probably needs it more than this one, but this one isn't that bad. Sounds okay. So, and you only got, let me see, what is there? 3 instrumentals on this one. So not too bad.
Yeah.
But
And
what's
that's
good about
probably
these
more than
is,
you need, right? That's probably just enough. I think, you know, you're going to get through every album.
exactly. Yeah.
I would say
Two
or
of
three.
them are 4 minutes and the other one is only 1 minute. So it's not even that long. So
Yeah.
too bad. So it's my 9.
Speaking of an album that probably needs a remix or something is, and I like this album, number 9, War to End All Wars from 2000. You know, pretty cool kind of, you know, you got the Frank Frazetta thing going on there. I hate the back cover. I'm like, what?
Yeah, it's terrible.
Jesus. But and here you got Mark Bowles on vocals again. I think it's one of his darker and heavier albums, I think.
Yeah.
But man, the production is just Mud City.
Yes.
But, you know, it's pretty heavy. Like I said, heavy and dark. You got Macaluso on drums, who's a phenomenal drummer. Prophet of Doom is a great song. The title track is really, really heavy. Got Catch 22. Tarot's another really good song. You know, very mystical, lyrical images and themes. You got a couple really good instrumentals. You got Molto Arpeggioso. Ridiculous name, but whatever. But I think it's a good album. The songs are good. It's quite heavy. It's one of his heavier albums. Sounds like shit, but it's got a cool cover as long as you forget this nonsense on the back. But I dig it. It's a good, fun album.
Yeah, good choice. For sure. Back to me, I guess. I don't know what I was expecting. Number 8, I'm gonna go with what Rich just chose. I'm gonna go with Fire and Ice. And again, Rich, you're pretty spot on with everything that you said. Teaser is a great track off of that record. Kind of like you mentioned, another kind of try at Heaven Tonight, kind of more on the commercialer side, if you could say that. I mean, I think it's a pretty solid album, you know, again, not super up there, but I think that it was a good choice for Yngwie at that time. And yeah, the album cover isn't too bad. It's kind of just what you would expect for Yngwie. So
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered it all, but yeah, that's going to be my number 8.
At least it looks like they put a couple bucks into that album cover, right?
Right. Yeah.
You can't really say for some of these that we're going to see, but all right, Rich, back to you.
All right. I'm going back to Facing the Animal, but this is the second cover. First one is terrible. You have it there. Oh, what is that with the
It's the animal print in the back.
With the animal print on the back? It looks like what's her name from Married with Children? Her clothes.
I mean, they would have been better off going with this, which
Yes.
isn't much better, but still, it's like,
Yes, but this is cool. I like this cover.
yeah, that works.
Yeah.
This is solid. But I don't really hear the things that you hear, Sydney, too much. That you said the more modern things on this. Maybe a little bit here and there that you mentioned it, but I think it's still more kind of classic Yngwie. Maybe a little more modern at times, but not too much. So I really like Braveheart, Facing the Animal's great, Sacrifice, My Resurrection's great, Poison in My Veins, Heathens from the North, it's good. And I like the production on this too. It's one of the better produced albums. It's got a good heavy guitar sound. You can hear the drums, you can hear the bass. It's not too high end or anything. I think it's got a pretty good mix to it. So yeah, I like this one. Go back to it often. And it's not loaded with instrumentals. I think there's maybe one instrumental.
Yeah.
Maybe. Is there one instrumental?
Yeah, there's one or two, I think. That's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's mostly songs instead of instrumentals.
More of a band effort, in my opinion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this. And Matt sounds really good singing as well. I like him.
Yeah, he's got a good voice.
It's kind of great here.
Yeah.
Who he would go on to sing for Candlemass for a couple EPs, right? We were talking about when we did that episode.
Yep, yep.
Not full albums, but a couple EPs. And Cozy Powell sounds awesome on this.
He does, and that's the last thing he would do before he passed away.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was the last thing, but yeah, I think he's, again, sounds great on that. And kind of like you were saying, I think that I don't know, I think like it definitely does have like classic Yngwie a little bit to it, but to me I kind of heard more alternative, a little bit heavier in some of the songs. But I mean, that's the thing about music, right? We all hear it differently. So
We absolutely do. All right, my number 8. God, speaking about another bad album cover, Perpetual Flame from 2008.
Awful.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, I would have rather seen that on the cover. I mean, come on.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, just,
Exactly. Nice live shot.
Yeah. But I like this album a lot. So this is the first album with Tim Ripper Owens. It's a heavy album, and unlike the one that comes after it, which was Relentless, it's not like almost half instrumental. You hear Ripper on almost every single song on here, which is great. Damnation Game, classic Yngwie sounding song with some shrieking Ripper vocals. Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse is great, nice and heavy. Red Devil's got nice groove to it. One of the things I liked about like the early 90s, mid 90s Yngwie is he would always throw a couple like kind of like groovy, almost like funk metal pieces, because he's got a bluesy side to him, which I kind of like. And that's a really good track. I love Priest of the Unholy. So heavy, almost doomy. The couple of instrumentals are really good. I think it's a very, very solid album. And like I said, when this came out, I was pretty excited to hear that, him and Ripper had kind of gotten together and, we're going to do a couple albums. And like we saw, it was only 2, but that's easily the best out of the 2 of them. Bad cover notwithstanding. I mean, after a while, it's just like, it's all right. We get it. It's your band, but it's like,
Right.
well, it's like look at other bands' album covers, and it's like they're not on the cover, it's a cover of something else. It's a piece of art. And it's him like with some like fan blowing his hair back with like his guitar up like this, and it's eventually like
was he afraid that people weren't going to buy it if he wasn't on the cover? Or has he got that big of an ego?
Or
did they not know that it was mine if I wasn't
Or if you're going to do something with him on it, don't be quite the focal point, be a little more creative. Like
like I love that album cover. I personally love that album cover because I think that like it's almost like mystical and like magical a little bit or whatever, but it's a piece of art. You know what I mean? It's like a character.
Yeah.
It's more than just we did
That's why I don't mind this one too much, because it's like there's a lot going on here, right? It's not just
Yep.
Yeah.
A little more artistic.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Sydney, back to you for number 7.
All right, my number 7 is going to be Magnum Opus, which was again released in '95. And he continued with Michael on this record as well. I like this album a lot. I think that it kind of had a lot of like classic Yngwie style to it, to be honest, with a lot of the melodic stuff that, he was kind of known for in when it got started. I love No Love Lost, which is the second track off of that record. And like we mentioned, I like the kind of balance between vocals and instrumentals on this record. There's only about, I think, like one or two. So nothing too crazy. They're not super long either. So it's a pretty kind of, song focused record, which again, I kind of stated that I prefer that. So I like that about the record. And yeah, I think it's a pretty solid record again for the time. This was in 95. Another not so great album cover. It looks like it was photoshopped on an Adobe. Not the best. The color thing, gradient, I don't know. It's a weird looking cover.
That's the reissue, which isn't bad.
Yeah,
The reissue is
I'm
okay.
gonna have to go grab these.
Don't we notice? And that's the thing, is that it's like they're reissued and the covers change a lot. So like, do they also recognize that
Yeah.
the covers are not so great, and then they like change them? As for the picture of Yngwie, it's not too bad, but the rest of the album cover is not the best. Yeah.
It's very power metalish.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah, it's an okay album again. It's number 7, so I do prefer it a little bit more than the other ones I mentioned already. Voodoo's a great track. The Only One. There's a bunch of great songs on this. So that's going to be what my number 7 is, magnum opus.
These were Spitfire, the Spitfire reissues. That's where you get the new covers.
Yeah, mine is Architect Music, division of Viceroy Music. It's like whatever.
Man.
It's terrible.
You got the magnum opus there? Not too bad.
It's the color thing. It looks like,
yeah.
It looks like when you like burn a CD and you're like trying to be cool and you like make the cover yourself.
Yeah.
I remember when I got this, I was like, who would put
what the hell happened there?
That looks like a demo that somebody hands you after when you walk out of the show.
Yeah.
It's awful. Who would put something like that out? I was like, holy cow. Oh, Jesus.
Oh man.
Yeah. Poor Yngwie.
Gotta get some better artwork designers.
Yeah, really.
God. All right, Rich, back to you.
All right. So I'm gonna go with an album, like you said before. Sometimes he does kind of like bluesy, kind of soulful kind of playing a little bit. And I think he does that on this album on a few tracks.
Yeah,
Eclipse from 1990.
Yep.
Which I like. I think he does that. What do you think? Bedroom Eyes, like that song.
Oh, totally. Yeah, totally.
You can hear it on that, a little bit of that soul funk kind of thing going on.
Yeah.
But I love Making Love. Great kickoff track. Devil in Disguise, Judas is really great. Demon Driver, nice hard rocker. This is a cool album. I like this one. This is where Goran Edman as well singing. Yep. First one actually. And one instrumental, if I'm right, guys, right? Eclipse, the title track.
I believe
close it off.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's it. Yep.
So it's not overdone with instrumentals. It's all song based. And I like the instrumental too that closes it out. Eclipse is a nice song. So yeah, it's 11 songs. It's a solid album. I like this one. I go back to this often.
Yeah, me too. I think that Yngwie learned a little bit working with Joe Lynn Turner for the album before that, because I could totally picture Joe singing that album.
Yes.
And all of a sudden Yngwie forgot all that again, like coming up in a couple albums later.
I'll talk about that in a little bit.
like Save Our Love is like a great like melodic AOR rock song.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a good album. I dig that one a lot.
Cool album. I like that. And the production's pretty good too.
It is. And I remember when that album first came out, because he had a lot of momentum going with him with Odyssey, right? But then of course Joe split and he got Goran in, but I think that there was enough momentum that they've really pushed that album enough. I think Eclipse should have sold better than it did. Kind of didn't.
Yeah.
Barely dent. I don't even think it dented the top 100 Billboard here. And but I think the songs are there. It should have been bigger than it was. But
Making Love and Bedroom Eyes are the two singles.
Yeah.
Good singles.
Yeah. That like I'll talk about it a little bit because maybe on my list, but the kickoff track, that's a really, Making Love's a really kind of strong, like you said, a strong kickoff track. It's really melodic. It has a lot like that that could have achieved, I feel like, radio airplay at the time, like heavy if
Yeah.
it was pushed further. But
Yeah. I love a great hook, and that's got a great hook.
yeah.
It does. My number 7, you guys have both mentioned it, Fire and Ice. I like this album. I think Goran sounds great on this. I don't think either one of you mentioned Dragonfly, which is just what we're just talking about. It's got that funky feel to it, kind of bluesy.
Yes,
kind
it's
of
true.
heavy. I think Teaser's a great song, right? It's just, again, this album came out in what, 92?
Yeah.
I think if Teaser
Yeah.
came out in like 87 or 88,
Right.
maybe it does really well. Kind of a couple
Yeah.
years too late. Cry No More is really good melodic, lots of really good guitars. Leviathan, Perpetual, 2 amazing instrumentals. I like this a lot. I mean, a lot of songs. I mean, but you know, this was 92, so the CD industry is booming, and bands are like, oh, I mean, I can put out like a 79 or 8-minute album and lots of tracks. And so, you know, some of these albums that we're talking about from the 90s have a lot of music on them. It's almost like a little bit of fatigue, right? Where if cut like 3 tracks off it, it's a little more compact, maybe a little stronger. But I like this. I still listen to this a lot. I think it's a good album.
You know what I noticed about that album? I forgot to mention. I think Symphony X, Mike Romeo, was influenced by that album a lot when Symphony X started off. Those first couple albums,
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah,
right?
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah. Yeah, because those first 2 Symphony X albums are very different than a lot of stuff that they would do afterwards, right? Especially the first one, right? Without a doubt.
And when I went back to Fire and Ice, I was like, wow, this reminds me a lot of the first couple Symphony X albums.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Romeo is listening to Yngwie big time. He's often stated he's a Rainbow and Kansas fan. You got to imagine those early Halloween albums probably influenced him a little bit too. So yeah, absolutely. Good point. Good point. All right, Cindy, back to you for number 6.
All right, my number 6 is what we just spoke about. My number 6 is Eclipse, and I know that you mentioned this, Pete, which I thought was such a great point. As I thought this too, and kind of just mentioned it, is that we did that overlooked album show on the Hudson Valley Squares. I remember that you picked this one, and I completely do think that it is heavily overlooked. Like you mentioned, I feel like he kind of got into the groove of kind of writing songs that could be commercially successful, but also still targeted towards, obviously hard rock fans and those who maybe weren't so into the commercial stuff. Making Love's a great track, Bedroom Eyes, Save Our Love, like Rich said. And I mean, I don't actually hate this album cover. I actually like it.
No, it's not bad.
One of the better ones.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's funny, like when I saw it for the first time, the way that Eclipse is written, it looks like it could be like if it was a different picture, it could be like a pop album from like 1985, the way that the title's written. But I actually like that album cover. It's one of his better ones for sure. And yeah, I mean, I think that and I'll talk about this a little bit later in my picks, but I think that Joe Lynn Turner could have done a great song on this, great job on this record. I really wish he would have stuck with Joe and made it work. I'll get into that in a little bit. But I think that, Joe could have done a great job. I mean, Goran isn't bad either. I think that he's a great vocalist who, he did a great job on this. I mean, I think it's a solid album. So I know that we kind of talked about it a little bit before. So that's going to be my number 6.
I wonder if a couple of these songs weren't meant for Joe Lynn and written at that time, and they just carried over to that album.
Yeah.
No, wouldn't surprise me. All right, Rich, what do you got?
All right. Seventh Sign from 94. That's the new cover, which is a lot better than the other one.
Much better than this.
That's got to be in the top 10 of all time worst covers.
Awful. And then you look at the back, and I'm like, this was the CMC International. I mean, there's just no information. The booklet is terrible. I mean, it's just so cheap looking. I mean, come on, guys.
Yeah, I know, right?
And of course, you got a picture of Yngwie by the pool. I mean, what?
Wow, that's rock star right there, though.
Yngwie by his Ferrari.
There you go.
You couldn't.
There you go.
You got all this stuff here, but you couldn't put something better on the cover on the front of this. I'm like,
right.
And it's still a space.
A cool album. I really like it a lot.
Yeah.
Never Die, Forever One. I really like Hair Trigger, Brothers instrumentals, really nice. Seventh Sign, Crash and Burn. I go back to a lot of songs on this album. Very cool.
Yeah.
And it's the first one, Mike Becerra, great singer.
Yeah.
Who used to sing in the 80s band Obsession. Anybody remembers that band?
Yeah, and he was in Loudness briefly, right?
Yeah.
Yes, for 2 albums, I want to say, right? So yeah, cool album. Good production too. One of the
Yeah,
better
definitely.
sounding albums that he's had.
Yeah.
You know.
Deserved
Oh,
better
I
than
didn't realize this
packaging and
too.
distribution than it got.
I just seen the credits here. Do you know who was playing drums on this?
I'll tell you in a second.
I
But
just read it. I was like,
was
I didn't know he was on this album.
Mike Tirana.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I forgot. Yeah, Mike Turan is on drums. Wow.
great player. Yeah, that guy's
Yeah,
amazing.
he was in the German band Rage. You remember that?
Yep.
In a great era of Rage too.
Yeah. I mean, here lies a lot of the problems with this guy and his bands. I mean, he's just changed his band members constantly.
Yeah.
Right.
I've talked about it so much on the channel. It's like, I think, especially in this country, people are loyal and hold on to this whole idea of a solidified, consistent band lineup. And if you look at guys like him, and Blackmore's been guilty of it, and George Lynch has been guilty of it, and Lynch Mob, and all these guys who have these bands where every album is a different lineup, they never really make it really big, right?
Yeah.
Because people like that band concept. And every album is a different singer, different drummer, different bass player. It's just like you never know like what to expect from album to album to album, and that has hurt him, I think, over the years. There's no
It affects your.
Yeah, it's also like inconsistency, right? So
I was just gonna say that. Yeah, it
Yeah,
affects your consistency.
it's inconsistency. And I mean, like, not that I think that, I mean, I feel like obviously majority of the people that he has had on his albums are very talented, but it's completely different. Not only that, but it's also completely different songwriting. So, you had Joe Lynn Turner writing words for Odyssey, and then you had every other vocalist on every other album writing the lyrics. And so it's completely different lyrical content, and it's completely different style and phrasing and tone. And it's lending towards, I mean, yes, Yngwie has a sound, and that sound carries into, every album that he does, but also the other band members have a sound. So once you keep changing the sound, it becomes inconsistent, unidentifiable in certain albums. It's just, and then you have, I just like came to my mind, like when I just talked to somebody about this, like an original lineup, like I was just thinking like Black Sabbath, right? Like you have a band like Black Sabbath, and they put out the same type of, music, and even if it changed a little bit, like it was a core thing, and it led to consistency and knowing what to expect. And I feel like sometimes that's lost in these. So
yeah, I mean, it's a good point.
By this, I'm sorry, by this album too, I'm looking at the credits. Mike Viscera only gets like 1 or 2 credits for lyrics, and that's it. Everything else is Yngwie all over the place. So yeah, I think after the 80s too, maybe the singers weren't contributing so much, and it was all Yngwie too.
Yeah.
Well, it also needs to be said that because Yngwie has written a lot of lyrics for the early albums and a lot of the later ones, he tends to write about very gothic, almost horror-inspired, doomy stuff, right?
And power metal too.
Yeah.
Fantasy. A lot of
fantasy, exactly. And it's very different. And then Goran Edmond doesn't write like that. Joe Lynn Turner doesn't write like that. Right. So there's going to be these different flavors depending on who's singing. And if he brings in a singer, and I'm sure he's done it in the past, who doesn't really write much, he's probably like, good, he doesn't write, because now I can do everything. I can write all the music, write all the lyrics. All he's got to do is show up and sing my songs, right? And I bet you if we were really to analyze it, those kind of guys probably stayed in his band longer than the other ones did. Because how much you want to bet that him and Joe were at odds because of the songwriting thing? How much you want to bet him and Goran were at odds because of that? Maybe Matt Slevin too. Maybe Ripper Owens too. Who knows? I don't know. Yeah. But it's just guys like this. I mean, you look, I love him, but Richie Blackmore is the same way. I mean, why do you think his time with Dio came to an end? Because it was a songwriting thing. He had issues with Joe as well. So it's like these guys are too strong-willed to kind of hold on to everything, every aspect of the songwriting process. And what's an easier thing for them to do? Just keep firing and hiring new band members, right? Because I want to do it my way. So
yeah, completely agree.
But the question is, has that worked out for Yngwie on his last few albums? I don't think so.
Yeah, right.
No.
It's like, you know what, dude, if you want to write your own lyrics and all the music, that's fine, but get a singer to sing them, please.
It's also, I know we talked about this briefly before we went live, but yeah, like I mentioned, I'd seen him the past couple years, and the having a singer thing live as well, like apart from his studio recordings, and this is no hate on his like band, because they're doing the best they can, but like his bass player, singing Heaven Tonight, it's just not, it's, it's just not cutting it. Like, it's just not
Yeah.
cutting it. And then, when you have like Rising Force and you have Heaven Tonight, and then the rest of the show is like, he doesn't even play a lot of, newer stuff, even vocally, he'll do like one song from his recent record, and then the other hour and a half of the show is just instrumentals. And it's get a singer, like just hire somebody and get a singer. And I know he's like said publicly that he doesn't want to, and he's done with singers, but he doesn't even sing live really. So it's like, I don't know. It's a weird thing. Just get a singer. Just
I don't know. Well, my number 6, you guys have both mentioned, Facing the Animal from '97. This is the animal print, terrible cover, right? Yeah, I like this album. I love this lineup. Again, we're talking lineups never last. It didn't last. We lost Cozy shortly afterward, but man, Matt Slevin, Barry Dunaway, Matt Eliason, however he says his name, Cozy Powell. That's a good lineup in my opinion. And Cozy crushes on this album. Braveheart is great. Title track is awesome. Enemy is really good, kind of dramatic metal. Sacrifice has a good hook to it. Another Time. Heathens from the North is dark. I like some of the dark stuff. A lot of really good guitar riffs on here. It just, to me, this truly sounds like a band effort. It's less about me and more about, look, I put together this great lineup, but as we know, it didn't last. So yeah, I dig this album. I think this album could have been, again, we're talking about '97, right? So this kind of music is just not happening here. But I think in another time, another place, this album would have done big business for him. But oh well, not to be. Back to Sydney for number 5, the top 5.
All right. So I think for my number 5, I'm going to go because I've been with my number 4 and my number 5 in like the past 24 hours. I've like switched it like many times, and I'm gonna switch it again right now on the last minute. So my number 5 is gonna be his debut. It's gonna be Rising Force. That was obviously his first solo record. I mean, there's some great songs on this. This is more of a instrumental, more so than a lot of the other records later on. Jeff Scott Soto does do the vocals on this record on the few songs that have them. I mean, he obviously has a Black Star, which is one of his most iconic songs, Far Beyond the Sun. Still plays those tracks to this day. Again, I prefer more of the vocal heavier albums a little bit more, so that's why a little bit higher on my list. And again, this was really interchangeable with what my number 4 is going to be. But I decided to switch at the last minute. So my number 5 is going to be the debut.
How do you feel about that cover? Not bad, right?
It's not bad. No, it's not bad. He started out kind of strong. I mean, he kind of the whole thing. And I mean, it wasn't overtly, Yngwie on the cover, being like, hey, I'm Yngwie, but guitar playing.
Pete, what do you think?
Great cover, great back cover, because the back cover is him. I like the him with the behind the head doing the Hendrix.
Yeah.
I mean, that made a statement back in.
I think it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
1984. I mean, he was the hot shit on the scene, right? I mean, I was totally into that.
And it looks great it looks great on an LP too. Like it was formatted for an LP at that time. A lot of those 90s albums were, again, we talked about, formatted for CDs and not really thinking about what it would look like on a big LP. Right. But I think that cover works really great on a
and nobody was playing like this that time. He was the first one.
Which is another thing about that album, is that, although it was instrumental heavy a little bit more than the other records, nobody was, hearing what he had done at that point. Stuff in Alcatraz, and people knew, of course, of his talent, but nobody had really seen him do a lot of the incredible shredding stuff that he went on to, become known for. So at that point, when that album came out, it was more of a holy crap, who cares how many instrumentals there are, because this guy can freaking shred. So I think that's also what's a little bit more different about this record than some of the later ones that are really more instrumental heavy. So,
Rich, is that your original copy that you had back in the day?
Yeah.
Is that the Japanese import? Because mine was a Japanese import.
This is Polydor Polygram. So was that the import? I don't remember.
I mean, yeah, I think it was on the same label, but I remember when I bought mine, it was an import, and the lyric sheet was all in Japanese.
Wow.
No, mine doesn't have a lyric sheet, actually.
Okay, I know they re-released it here shortly thereafter, but I bought it like I first saw it in the import racks. I was like, gotta have it, because I was like,
oh yeah, Yeah, this is yeah, I got this when it first came out too. So Polydor Polygram. I don't know if that's the original, but it's got to be pretty close to it because I did buy it at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just doesn't have the lyric sheet in it.
Okay. Cool. All right, Rich, do number 5.
All right, Magnum Opus. From what year was this again? 95.
95, yeah.
Second one with Mike Visera singing. I really like this album a lot. I really go back to it all the time, and I don't skip any tracks. Vengeance, No Love Lost. I love Tomorrow's Gone, The Only One. The Overture 1622 instrumental is really nice. I love Voodoo. Time Will Tell. What a great hook in that.
Yeah.
There's several songs on this album that have great hooks that remind me a lot of the Joel and Turner era.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a favorite of mine. Really like it. Highly
I
recommend this.
completely agree. I yeah, like I said, I think that album definitely has a lot of more of that classic sounding, what he became known
Yeah.
for at that time in it.
Yeah, the good, great riffs, but also the big hooks and the melodies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. Highly recommend it.
Cool. My number 5, you both have mentioned. It's pretty high on my list. Eclipse from 90. For all the reasons you guys said, I love the vocal performance. I like the songs. I love the Odyssey album so much, and this to me sounds like the perfect extension of it. Just doesn't have Joe on it. A lot of great songs. Making Love, Devil in Disguise, Demon Driver, Judas. I've been sitting here, as much as I love Goran's performance on here, I always kind of, when I play this, I'm like, yeah, I can see Joe singing all these songs, even the heavy ones, Motherless
But the
Child,
sound is
See
so
You in
good.
Hell. It's a catchy album, a lot of good guitar playing, not excessive, a million solos. And I think it never got the credit that it deserved. I think this deserved to be a bigger album than it was. Unfortunately, it didn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I listen to this a lot. I dig it. And again, one of those albums that, and Sydney mentioned it too, we talked about those albums we kind of ignored back in the day. And I remember how disappointed I was that Joe wasn't in the band anymore. And I bought this, but I didn't listen to it a ton back in the day. I was kind of like, I was already moving on to other things. And now to revisit it, it's like, that's a really damn good album. And I wish I would have paid more attention to it back in the day. It's good.
I do remember Making Love and Bedroom Eyes on Headbangers Ball a lot, though.
Yeah. They didn't push it enough, though. Either one of them.
No.
Oh, well. All right, the top 4. What do you got, Sydney?
All right. My number 4 is going to be, well, can I find my list? Holy crap. Marching Out, which was kind of switching between that and the debut. I love this album. This is kind of more power metal-y, if that's a word, more on the power metal side. Just Got Soto's on vocals. I mean, this has I'll See the Light Tonight, which is such a great song. I love the video for that song. And I know that Rich tagged us in that not too long ago on Facebook, and I watched it again. I was like, man, this is such a great video. On the Run Again is a great song. Caught in the Middle is a great song. There's a bunch of different, really great tracks on this. And I think that this was a great choice to continue to have Jeff on this record. Again, he was on the debut. This was the second record that he did with Yngwie. And I mean, I think Jeff Scott Soto is a great vocalist. He has the pipes, and I think it really shows on this album. So it's more kind of, as we mentioned, it was really into like the fantasy kind of stuff at that time. And Yngwie was really kind of into, I mean, we'll talk about it too with like Trilogy a little bit later, but he kind of had that fantasy oriented, lyrical content and musical content. And I think that kind of showed on this album as well. So I think it's really, really strong. So that's gonna be my number 4.
And I had that same LP that Rich has, and I love that album cover. And then when they put this out on CD, they released it with this crap, and I was like, "Oh man, I want the original! Come on, man!"
No.
Yeah. Yep.
This is great. Like, God, that's such an iconic album.
Like that's a great album cover too.
This one?
Yeah, it's still no. The LP. The LP is a
It's
great album
amazing.
cover.
I've always loved that album cover. And then I had a poster of that, and then they put this out with this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man.
Uh-huh.
It's like lame.
Laura.
It's amazing too. You mentioned Jeff Scott Soto, and as great as he is on that record, he would become an even better singer after he left Yngwie.
Oh yeah.
But he's great on that album. But it's amazing how much he improved from that first album. because his vocals on the first album are not very good in my opinion, but we'll get to that in a minute. All right,
I'm
Rich.
excited to hear.
So we're at 4, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So the debut is my 4. All the same things you said, Sydney. Especially like Black Star and Far Beyond the Sun,
Yeah.
songs he still plays live. I really like Icarus Dream Suite. I think that's a nice piece too. There's only 8 songs on this, so it's kind of a short album. Because the one song, Little Savage, is a short little instrumental.
Yep.
So it's really like 7. But yeah, it's still enjoyable and classic for what it is. I remember when it came out, I bought it and nobody sounded like this. It was so new. He was just inventing the wheel for what this style was and this kind of playing. So really important at that time and still is. So it's a total classic.
It's not even 40 minutes long. It's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of gets in and gets out. It's short and sweet.
Yeah.
And it just sets the standard.
Barrymore Barlow from Jethro Tull on drums. Pretty cool. Jens Johansson on keyboards, who
Will go on later to be in
Stradivarius. Yep. Yeah, it's my number 4 as well. For whatever reason, because I listened to this ton back in the day. I was like so into this album. I find that I very rarely reach for this anymore. I still love it and appreciate it for what it is, but it's not of his albums. It's not one that I tend to go for. You both mentioned how the instrumentals on here are legendary, and they're some of his best ever. Obviously Black Star, Far Beyond the Sun. I find the 2 vocal pieces are like kind of cringy listening to them now. I don't think Jeff sounds really good on them, and I just think the vocal melodies and the song arrangements are just not very good. I mean, this was you could tell that Yngwie was writing not for vocals at the time. He was writing all he wanted to do was instrumentals, but he knew he had to throw a couple vocal pieces on here, and the songs sound like they would have been better as instrumentals. Now your ships are burning and your people in return and take upon you nothing. You listen to it now and I'm like, oh my God, this is so terrible. But the rest of it is great. I mean, the instrumental stuff is just absolutely incredible on here. And Rich mentioned Icarus Dream Suite, which is, that's some serious stuff right there.
Yeah, it's a nice piece.
Yeah. So, I still love it for the classic it is. I don't listen to it as much anymore, but I still appreciate it, big time. So, yeah, if we would have done this 30 years ago, it would have been probably my number 2, but it drops a couple notches here today in 2021.
Yeah. All right. My number 3, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to pick a live album, but I did anyways, even if it was considered cheating. So my number 3 is going to be the Live in Leningrad album. I love that live album. It's one of my favorites, hence why it's number 3. You guys already know how much I love Jill and Turner. So I love, of course, obviously the songs that they do off of Odyssey on this record, but and I love Mark Bowles and what he did on Trilogy, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But I love hearing Jill and Turner sing Queen in Love and You Don't Remember, I'll Never Forget, and Liar. Again, I'll get into when I get to a couple albums later as to why I feel that way. But I think that Jill and Turner just has such strong vocals, and I love hearing him sing those songs. And again, this was in Leningrad, so this was 89. It was kind of a cool thing for them to go over and do that. They were huge over there in Russia and everything, and with USSR, I guess at that time. They were really big over there, so it was a huge crowd, and it was just insane. They sold out like so many nights when they went over and did that. And I just love that. I love that live album, so I had to put that on my list, even if it was considered cheating. So that is my number 3.
Sydney's doing a Steve Keeler today, so we get it.
If I'm correct, Pete, didn't they play that on MTV at the time?
The concert?
Yeah, wasn't that?
It was
I
filmed
know
as well.
I know it came out as a video, and
Yeah.
I remember seeing it on TV too.
They might have.
Yeah, it was so great. Everything about that video was just so 80s. It was just like just everything. The hair, and like Joe was wearing like this like fringe like white jacket. It was he was wearing sunglasses for half the show, and you're inside. It was just like so 80s and so great. So I love that.
With all the smoke that was on the stage, I don't know how he didn't trip and fall over something.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I caught them a couple times with Joe on vocals, I think twice. And well, you mentioned him singing the Mark Bowl stuff, and that was pretty cool to see live because
Uh,
at the time we knew the Trilogy album really well, and to hear Joe singing, those songs was pretty neat. He did a really good job on them. So
it was like I heard that for the first time and I was like, oh my God, he's singing Queen in Love. Like, I feel like this has fit him vocally so well because I love those songs. And I mean, I love the studio versions, of course, the most because those are how I originally heard them. And I think that they're so classic that way. But I love Joe's just vocal style. And I think that his just style in general fit those songs so well. So I think he did a great job on those.
yep, they were good choices for them to do live.
Yeah.
I agree. All right, Rich.
All right. Speaking of Joe, I'm going with his album for 3. Odyssey. Love Rising Force. That's like a perfect power metal song, right? Hold On is a great melodic AOR radio rock song. That's what was great about having Joe in the band too, because it pushed Yngwie into that realm of AOR rock hooks.
Yep.
And that's what he needed. It, like you said, he needed that in the band, and it should have carried over into Eclipse and future records. But unfortunately, it didn't stick around. Just one album. And Heaven Tonight was obviously a hit. Should have been. Dreaming is great. Ride in the Dungeons, Deja Vu. I love Crystal Ball. Talk about a hook.
Crystal
What
Ball
a hook
great.
in that song. Crystal
So
Ball.
good.
All right. So good. And what else? Krakatu, instrumental.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Towards the end. That's actually at the end. So yeah, this is a really cool album. It would have been higher if he didn't have the 2 albums that I didn't talk about yet before. I would have put it at either 2 or 1, but the other 2 albums came before it, so that's why it's in my 3. But it's obviously in the 3. It's got to be there. It's great. Love Joe Lynn, great singer, and he signed it too when I met him many, many years ago.
Oh, I love that.
Signed it for me. So
Nice.
Great.
yeah, very cool. Great album. It's on the back too. Good band shot back. All right.
My number 3 is Trilogy from '86. Good
Talk
vocal.
about a great cover.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I mean, I always love the art of the whole thing, right? It's just.
Yeah.
Now we know where
Yeah,
all the
back.
animal print stuff is coming from, right? Because
Right. Great cover. Back cover.
Mark sounds great on this. There's some just classic tracks on here. You Don't Remember, I'll Never Forget.
Oh.
Should have been a hit.
Yeah.
Minor hit. You heard.
Actually, it was actually a video hit. It's huge.
Yeah. Not a radio track, unfortunately, but it's just a really great anthem. Liar completely smokes. Queen in Love is another really good, catchy song. Fury, Magic Mirror, Dark Ages. You got a couple instrumentals. It's just it's a pretty consistent album as far as. I mean, I think, the next album would even go a little further that, but I think of kind of putting together some catchy melodic anthemic tracks with some heavy stuff and some cool instrumentals. And, you throw the really cool artwork into it. And I played this a ton back in the day. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. I still do. So
Yeah.
Number 3. The
Yeah.
top 2, here we go.
So speaking of Trilogy, that is my number 2. I love this album. I really, really do. Again, yeah, kind of everything you just said. You Don't Remember, I'll Never Forget. Such a great song to start that album off with. Queen in Love is one of my favorite songs, one of my favorite Yngwie songs. Just so good. The hooks are so good. I love the keyboards, to be honest, on a lot of the songs, but this album especially, I think the keyboards lend such a great, just so great to these songs. Fury's so great, Magic Mirror. It's just a really great album. And I think that, again, as much as I wish I could have seen Joe Lynn Turner sing some of these songs, I think that Mark Bowles did such a great job, and vocally is really great. So Trilogy is going to be my number 2.
If I remember correctly, didn't when they shot the video for You Don't Remember, I'll Never Forget, Mark had already left the band. They got some weird looking little guy up there just, lip syncing over the vocals in the video.
That was Mark. Jeff left and Mark came in.
So that was Mark. God, he looks so different then. I was like, I'm remembering the video.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was him, right?
Wow, I don't know, because I don't remember him looking like that. But yeah, whatever. I'll
Yeah,
have to- I'll have to
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. I'm trying to think back on it now.
I have to go. I'm at the band, the album page for that album. Doesn't say. I thought that was Mark
Yeah, I don't know.
singing.
He looks
Gotta see if we could find that.
he looks really different in that
Great.
video. I remember like watching that video. I'm like, that doesn't look like Mark Bowles. Who's this guy?
Yeah, maybe it isn't him then.
I don't know.
Definitely not Just Got Soda.
No, it's definitely not him. No, definitely not him. But I don't know.
No.
Well, we'll look that up.
Yeah, I gotta look that up. Definitely a different guy.
What's your next pick, Rich?
Marching Out.
There you go.
I remember seeing I'll See the Light Tonight on TV and MTV, or maybe it was, what was it, U68?
Yeah.
Remember that channel, Pete? That was like a small underground TV channel that played metal videos, and they played I'll See the Light Tonight.
Yeah, if you were lucky to
And
have it.
if I'm correct on that video, wasn't that set left over from Conan the Barbarian?
Oh God, it might have been.
They used it, or the second movie, I want to say. It was left over from a movie set. That's why they used it with the dragon,
Yeah.
and the stones. So yeah, I'll See the Light Tonight. Don't Let It End, I think, is one of Soto's best vocals. And I Am a Viking, two of my favorites that he sings on. And you got Anguish and Fear, On the Run Again, Soldier Without Faith, Caught in the Middle. This is like a perfect album. There's nothing bad about it.
Yeah.
I think Jeff Scott sounds great on it. He sounds better than the debut. Very solid vocal from him.
Oh yeah.
And the playing is not being over. Yngwie at this point, he's not overplaying either. He's playing just enough.
Yeah.
He's playing for the song and not playing just to be going over the top. There's a lot of, great melodies in these solos that he plays. And that's what's great about this era too. The first album, Marching Out, Trilogy, Odyssey, he's playing for the song and not just playing just to overplay.
Yep.
That's what's great about this era too,
So it's not this video that I'm thinking of. So you don't remember, I'll never forget, is definitely Mark Bowles. So I'm thinking it might have been
No, I'll see the light tonight.
Yeah. So who is that?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's really funny that you say this because
That's Mark Bowles, right?
I went back and I watched the video when you tagged me in it. Again, I said that. And I was watching the video and I was like, what? To me, I was like, wait, that doesn't look like Jeff Scott Soto.
Yeah, it's definitely not him.
And I was very confused because I was like, is it? Because I'm like, he sang the song, but I was very confused. So it's really funny that you say that because I was very concerned when I went back and rewatched it.
So Pete, you just said that was Mark, or it wasn't?
It does not look like him. I'm watching it right now and I'm like,
I just IMDb'd it. I'm gonna see if it's there.
yeah, I don't know who that is. It's funny because I'm watching. I got the video up on YouTube, and someone made a comment. Is that when Quentin Tarantino fronted a metal band? Because that's what it's like.
IMDb is not keeping their information updated because it says Jeff Scott Soto. So he's not.
That is. I was gonna say I was not sure because I was like maybe I just forgot what he looked, but it did not look like him. And when I went back and rewatched it.
Maybe they just had one temporary guy just to do the video. And
I don't know. I don't know who it is. It totally doesn't look like Mark Bowles, but maybe the hair doesn't look the same. Face doesn't look.
If anybody knows, leave a comment. Let us know.
Who's in the video?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it is him. I don't know. Who knows? Anyway,
looking it up, see if I can find it.
All right, now that we got sidetracked here. Who's up? I don't even remember.
You're
hey, all right. Okay. All right. I'm going to go with Odyssey as my number 2 from '88. Love this album. I always thought, I was a huge Rainbow fan at the time.
Yeah.
Loved Joe and Rainbow. So when I heard about this pairing, I was like on cloud 9 because I'm like, all right, Rainbow obviously has been defunct for a couple of years by this point in time. And, Joe really wasn't doing much of anything. And I'm like, I loved Yngwie. And I was like, this is like the best of both worlds, right? Some great songs on here. Like Rich mentioned, Rising Force, great power metal song. Hold On, great ballad. Heaven Tonight, amazing song. Dreaming is great. Bite the Bullet, amazing. Riot in the Dungeons, nice heavy track. For me, though, I think the best 1-2 punch on this album is Deja Vu and Crystal Ball.
Oh,
I mean, the songs are unforgettable, right? Both of them could have been hits. Now is the Time is great. Faster Than the Speed of Light is a good kind of like, speedy ripping Yngwie song. And then you got the Krakatoa, which is a great instrumental. And I love this album. And, this is another one of those instances where when I heard that Joe had left, I was like, oh, you got to be kidding me. It's like you're totally crying. I remember like the day that I found out that like Dio and Vinny left Sabbath, and I was just absolutely crushed. And I felt the same way when this like didn't last, because I saw him a couple times on the tour. I love the album, and I'm like, oh man, Yngwie, you're killing me, right? But yeah, it's has been one of my favorite Yngwie albums ever since. It's just so good from top to finish. I think this is what everybody kind of wanted from Yngwie. It's like you can do good songs and still have enough guitars to attract the guitar audience. This is like the best of both worlds for him, and I don't think he's ever quite done an album that captured all of that like this one did. He came close on a couple of them, but that one's just everything worked there. And I listened to that all the time when that came out in '88.
Yeah.
So I was looking this up, and it does say that it's Mark Bowles.
Really? Okay. It looks so different.
Yeah. So it is him.
It's weird because if you look at that video and then you look at the video for what we're talking about, You Don't Remember, I'll Never Forget. Like he's got like a real receding hairline in I'll See the Light Tonight, and not much hair, and he's all forehead. And then you look at the other video, which is probably like a year later, and all of a sudden got this long hair all hanging in his face. I'm like, wait a second, that can't be
what
the same
happened.
He got some extensions there.
I guess he did, or whatever. Oh boy. All right, number one, Sydney. I think I know what your pick is.
Oh, maybe no. So I'm gonna go with one of my favorite albums of all time, Odyssey. Man. So I mean, I grew up listening to Rainbow. Of course, I was very young. I heard Bent Out of Shape and Straight Between the Eyes and all those albums, but this was the first album that I heard songs off of this, and I really learned who Joe Lynn Turner was, and he became just one of my favorite vocalists. Remember one time I was upstairs and my dad started playing Heaven Tonight, and I was like, what is that? That is pleasing to the ear. And I would listen to this album just constantly. I had memories of listening to this. I'd sit in study hall and I'd listen to Odyssey over and over and over and over again. And man, it's just so great. I mean, obviously Heaven Tonight, Rising Force, such a great song. Hold On, I feel like is just an underrated kind of song on this record. So freaking good. Crystal Ball, like, that opening riff on that song is so freaking good. And just the catchiness. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think that Joe Lynn Turner is just the ideal melodic rock vocalist. He does the AOR thing so good. He wrote all the lyrics on this album. So Yngwie wrote music, he wrote the lyrics, and I think that it was just such a good combination. To me, this is the best vocal pairing for Yngwie. I think that they could have done, like we mentioned, so many more great records if it worked. They just musically and lyrically and vocally, it was so great together. It was like the perfect package. And I'm so bummed that nothing ever happened. And I don't know. It's just so great. And I just had Mark Weiss on my podcast, and he shot the album cover, so we talked about that and kind of the experience of that. And I have the opening sleeve, which is a big band shot, which is kind of cool. It's not just Yngwie this time; it's the big band shot. And yeah, man, I think that all around this was Yngwie's shining moment, and one of my favorite albums of all time. I can listen to this on repeat for days and still be as amazed as I was the first time I listened to it. So I love this album. So good.
I'd argue that that album might be Joe's best vocal performance ever. It's between that and Straight Between the Eyes for me.
Yeah, it's
definitely
so
top 3 or top 5. Definitely top 3 or top 5.
Yeah.
He was just at the peak, and I think that they just worked so well together, just so good. And like, why couldn't it? Yeah, like why couldn't it have worked? Because I think that he would have sounded so great on Eclipse. And I completely agree with what you said, Rich, earlier, is that I wouldn't be surprised if some of those, at least musically, were written for that time period and ended up transferring over. But I just wish there could have been a second record, because I feel like that was just the whole package. It was just so great.
Yep. Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah.
Still like it as much as I did back then. It's held up
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
Really
Yeah.
well.
And sounds good too. It's got a good production.
Yeah.
Really good production, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Rich, I think I know what your number one is too. There's no mystery here anymore, right?
Right? Trilogy. And his best artwork too. This is my favorite cover from Yngwie.
Yeah.
So I really like this one a lot just because it's the best of the first two albums, just refined a little bit more with bigger hooks. And then you can see what he's going into when he works with Joe Lynn on Odyssey, I think.
Yeah.
Like you don't remember, I'll never forget. You know, a big hook like that. So you would hear that on the Odyssey album. But this is like a great merging also of like his instrumental stuff and a little bit of power metal too. You know, the early days of power metal, like Magic Mirror or Dark Ages or Fire, those type of things. And Trilogy Suite is another beautiful piece of music that's not overplayed. Like we talked about before, he doesn't overplay things. It's more for the song instead of him just noodling and going off. So this, I go through this whole album and I don't skip a track. Liar is heavy and aggressive, so is Fury. Crying is nice instrumental. Love Queen is in Love. And You Don't Remember, I'll Never Forget kicks off the album. Great album kickoff.
So good.
And you
Love
know
this
what, now
album.
that I'm thinking about it, so we talk about the album cover. So that was 86.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but that might be one of the first like metal albums that had a dragon on the front, and which we would see all the time, from Rhapsody and all these other bands that would throw dragons and sword and sorcery and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I think he kind of started that whole thing with that album.
Yeah. And when we did our power metal episode, I think, what was my choice? I think it was Marching Out because of I'll See the Light Tonight, right?
Yep.
For an essential power metal album. But I think I also mentioned that this would be in there too. You got to do the two of them.
Yep.
For the beginnings of that, with the riffing, with the keyboards and the trade-off, and then the solos and the neoclassical playing.
Yeah.
That and these are, these two albums, those two albums are essential to the groundwork of what power metal, Stradivarius, Halloween, what would become,
Yeah.
So yeah, I love this album. I play it all the time. All three of them, this one, and this one are obviously in the top three for a reason.
Yep.
They set the benchmark,
Yep. I agree. Well, my number one is Marching Out from 85. Man, I tell you, when I was in college and I was living in the dorm for that first like year and a half, I tortured my suite mates with this album. I played it all the time, and I lived with a bunch of like deadheads and like.
That's the way to do it, though. You got to torture them. You got to torture them,
right? So I lived with like two deadheads. One guy who was into like some prog, but like a lot of like more like kind of 60s music. Another guy who only listened to the radio, and a couple other dudes, and none of them were into metal. So like, they would always play all this other stuff, and I'd be like, and I would just like totally like, it's like, all right, well, now that you played that, can I throw this back on? They'd be like, not that fucking Swedish guy again. It's like, you played that album to death over the last couple of weeks. I'm like, sorry, I love it. So yeah, I listen to this constantly, and I love every song on it. And it's got a perfect balance of those couple ripping instrumentals and the rest of this real heavy stuff, and a couple kind of commercial tracks. But I Am a Viking is one of my favorite songs of all time. So heavy. Disciples of Hell is great. Anguish and Fear, Soldier Without Faith. I mean, real like kind of dark, moody, and heavy tracks. I love the riffs on this album, which I think sometimes he forgets that, riffs are part of metal too. It's like sometimes he just does these kind of like, boring chugga 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 things, and then he like spends all his time constructing solos, when I think on some of the early albums that we've been talking about here, there's really good riffs on them, right? And he kind of forgets that later on. But and I love Jeff's vocals on this album. Like I said, I think he would get even better later on. But man, you listen to his vocals on this compared to that first album, it's like a different guy, totally different guy.
Yeah, much better.
Yeah, I love this album. It's really good, and I love the closing title track instrumental, which I think is just really sublime. And I like when he is kind of a little more restrained like that, and not just does these like ridiculous guitar freakouts. I think he's a very tasty player and a very melodic player when he wants to be. He doesn't do it all the time, unfortunately. But yeah, I love this album. Love the lineup. This was the classic early lineup, but again, wouldn't last, right? So
yeah,
he was in the 80s and 90s a very tasteful player, and then after that, after the 90s and the 2000s, that's when he started overplaying everything
Yeah,
and
because
being overly aggressive and over shredding and too much noodling and too much solos and too much instrumentals. You know, it was just too much.
yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I think his music kind of went down certain avenues which weren't as pleasing to the longtime fans. But still plenty of good material. Like I said, I like the two Ripper albums quite a bit, but even those could have been better. But I don't know if either one of you listened to this one. I bought this when it came out, the Inspiration album, which is all the covers.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean it's fun for what it is.
It's not bad, but I just don't. I'm not a big fan of Yngwie's voice. I just am not. I'm just not. I don't know. It's. I just think that he is not meant to be a singer in the kindest possible way. I think that he's obviously, guitar is where it's at for him. He's not bad, but he's also not, it's just not great.
Well, he picked the one song on here that I think is okay to hide his vocals, doing a Hendrix song. But what's cool is you got Jolin's on here on a couple tunes. You got Soto's on here, a couple tunes, Mark Bowles. So it's kind of cool that he pulled some of the old vocalists in. But I don't know. I think it's a fun listen. This is one of those things that I bought back in the day and I listened to a bunch of times, and then I probably haven't listened to it in 20 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's cool to kind of see his inspiration, so to speak. Well, that's the name of the album, but some of the stuff that inspired him. So it's not surprising to see Deep Purple on here and Hendrix.
Oh yeah.
And what else you got on here? There's some good choices here. Kansas on here, UK, right? Because at the time, who would have thought he was a big Alan Holdsworth fan? But I don't know. I think it's kind of fun for what it is. But there you have it, everybody. Yeah. So people are probably like, oh, I guess you guys don't like any of the recent albums he's done. It's like,
I don't.
I don't even, I've reviewed most of them and I've never had an interest in even owning them because they're like, they're not good.
They're not really.
No.
Like, I think, was it World on Fire is the last one he did? And the title track is just, that was like really all I listened to. And I was like, ooh. Ooh. not
I've noticed everything since the 90s, since the 2000s, everything's almost overly aggressive sometimes too.
Yeah.
And it lost melody and just a good song structure. It's just overplaying and just over heavy.
Yeah. That's the thing of that title track I was just talking about. It's just there was no the melody wasn't there. It was just like a lot of kind of like chugga things like you were saying, and just the occasional just crazy solo and not a lot of anything else.
He lost some feel to his playing.
Yeah, I agree.
You throw in those vocals and he's not, it's okay to hear him sing like Once in a Blue Moon.
Yeah.
But to hear him be the only guy, oof, yeah.
I don't think it's in the cards.
No, I feel the same way about my man Robin Trower, who has also done the same thing in recent years. His last couple albums, he's doing all the vocals because I guess it's too expensive to keep a full-time singer on board. And I'm like, dude, man, get a singer. You're not a singer. It's like there's a reason why nobody's buying your albums anymore. So, yeah.
You know what else is cool though too? And the Concerto Suite for electric guitar and orchestra.
Yeah.
That instrumental album that he did. That's also a nice, captures his playing very nicely too.
Yeah, this is pretty good. Not an everyday listen for me, but it's fun. There's some good.
I feel like if you go into it and you're knowing that it's an instrumental album, that's one thing because you know what you're preparing yourself for. But if you sit down to listen to an album or let's say you're listening to the end of those instrumental heavy records for the first time and you sit down and you're expecting, there's a vocalist, and then you sit down and 7 out of 8 tracks are instrumentals, you're like, I feel like that's where the letdown is, if it's out there in the front that this is a primarily instrumental record, you can be in the mood to listen to it.
That's my issue with this one. I like this album and I like the vocal stuff on there, but man, it's like if you got Tim Ripper Owens on your album, let him sing. It's like don't just save it for 5 tracks. I mean, what about the rest of it? So
yeah.
So anyway, everybody, there you have it. Our 10 favorite albums from Yngwie Malmsteen. So in the comments below, feel free to list your favorite 5, your 10. If you want to do the whole catalog, go right ahead. There's a lot of them.
I think it's 21 or 22.
Yeah, it's crazy.
With instrumental albums.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. So I want to thank Sydney and Rich for helping out with this little exercise today. We will be seeing
Thanks.
them both on the channel and various assorted things over the coming days and weeks. So stay tuned for that. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube.
All the
All
damn
the
time.
time.
There you go. Stay tuned tonight for a live broadcast of the Hudson Valley Squares. We're taking your questions and feedback tonight. It's all 90 minutes of you, the viewers, asking us all sorts of questions. So we'll see how that goes. So stay tuned for tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Also, we've got another live Monsters Den coming up on Thursday night with Rich Catino, Chris Allo, and myself. So that's happening. That is Animals Attack Part 2. So stay tuned for that. And all sorts of, I've got a really fun show coming up on Wednesday night too. You guys do not want to miss, which is going to be talking all about the 80s metal scene. And I've got a bunch of guys from a bunch of bands who are big on the scene who are going to talk about, the live scene in their neck of the woods during that time period. So that's happening on Wednesday, and all sorts of other stuff happening this week. So stay tuned for everything, and we'll see you all later on. For Sydney Taylor and Rich Catino, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good one, everybody.